Doubles and copy. Our country is bankrupt. 9 years you stayed silent and you allowed a man who has no idea, no heart, no soul, no passion, no care for his country. A selfish man who only cares about enriching those around him. You let him carry our country down the toilet, and now Trinidad and Tobago stands bankrupt. The worst economic position we've ever been in, because you stayed silent. And when I say you, I mean you intellectuals. In any society, the intelligent, the experienced, those who are blessed with talent from God Almighty to think, to study, to understand, to interpret, to become experts, whether in finance, in economics, in business, in leadership, in labor, you stayed silent. The judiciary, you stayed silent. Retired professors, you stayed silent. Each of you will have to figure out, why, when I knew better, did I stay silent? Former central bank governors, former ministers, former PNM ministers, former PNM intellectuals, you stayed silent as Keith Christopher Rowley and the PNM bankrupted our economy, and now our people are suffering, and there is very little hope of recovery. The one hope is that somehow the people wake up and realize that the devil that is in charge, the incompetence, the heartlessness, the lack of experience, the dotishness, the selfish decisions that are being made at the leadership level and the executive, the political branch, and the people wake up and reject the PNM outright. Put people with brain, with experience. Some of you who think, oh, I'm fighting to get in to the UNC and I want a position. They need so many brains to solve all the issues. There are myriad of problems in Trinidad and Tobago that require all of the best of us in every sphere to solve it. Whether the economy, crimes, border security, education, safety, sport, culture, diversification, agriculture, across the board. One human being cannot do it. But all of you intellectuals stayed silent. Over the years, in whatever country, it's always those who have the greatest responsibility are those who have been blessed with a greater capacity for thinking, creative thought, experience, knowledge. And when in a country, those bright, intelligent ones stay silent and allow wrongdoing to occur, this is where we end up. We're seeing people now starting to talk. Martin Daly, you are talking about us being bankrupt. You are the worst element of our society. You feign independence when you are very close and loving to Rowley and his beloved wife and have an in-depth relationship. Then you pretend and present yourself as an independent senator, an independent columnist, and all of your writings are twinged with Balizé juice. That is terrible, because people in an adversarial political system look to those who are independent for facts, for information, to see who is right and who is wrong so that they can make decisions. People like you, Martin Daly, are the worst that Trinidad and Tobago have to offer. Now you're talking about the PNM and the decisions and the governance and the problem with the foreign exchange. But even now in your articles, you are unable to talk the truth. That Keith Rowley and Colm Imbert and the PNM have decimated our economy by their decisions over the last 9 years. Not only you, now all of a sudden, Robert Lahunt, you, a former PNM minister, you resigned and you stayed silent on why you resigned. Other members, over 165 board members and chairmen and chairpersons of boards under the PNM last 9 years have resigned. You at Williams, why did you resign? Denise Deming, why did you resign? Curtis Rudd and TDC and other members, why did you all resign? And I answer, because the PNM is corrupt at every level, but yet those who know stay silent, stay quiet, And that's why we have arrived at this position, the worst in our history. All of you stayed silent as Rowley collapsed the sea bridge to Tobago, starving us of needed foreign exchange, collapsing the economy of Tobago and therefore Trinidad, because Bridgemans must get a contract, because there was money to be had. And the Kobo Star is still running some $325 million thus far of crooked money that Rowley called crooked, but Rowley approved it with prime ministerial approval. You all sat by quietly as Rowley put himself in the midst of all negotiations with goods and service providers, knowing full well that that's not how it's done. That's wrong. That's not corporate governance. That's red flags for corruption and thieving and not value for money. All of you who knew, you stayed quiet. Why? You will have to answer to your God and to yourself and to your family. You will have to decide, why was it worth it, your silence? Because you knew better. You knew when Keith Rowley and Smallpin went down to Australia and toured Hostal and Incac and said that they're going to buy ferries. After they collapsed the sea bridge, they sent home the Canadians. They caused the Express and the Spirit to break down. They cut off Tobago. That a prime minister and ministers should not be procuring, should not be in charge of receiving so-called bids. You all know that that's not tender procedure, that is red flag for corruption and not value for money. You know that they also went to buy 2 Cutlass vessels at another $350 million. And that those 2 vessels were not required, were not asked for by the Coast Guard. And now they bought nonsense and they break down and they cannot be fixed. And our borders are open. All of you knew that that was not procurement. When Rowley and Al-Rawi and the PNM came to the Parliament and the Senate to water down and gut procurement legislation. Legislation designed to protect the taxpayers' money from thieves, from corruption. And they came to reduce the amount of protections. And an independent senator voted to allow thieving. You all stayed quiet. When Rowley went and intercepted, went to President Paula May Weeks and lied and didn't say anything for months, but you all knew it was him. And Paula May Weeks stayed quiet and then came out with a ridiculous statement. And Rowley went and intervened and intercepted a merit list that was duly signed off by the Police Service Commission independently after interviews on who deserved what job to keep us safe. When Rowley interfered and intervened and caused the collapse of that merit list, and Bliss C. Prasad misbehaved in public office. Rowley misbehaved in public office by going there and getting the president to allow Bliss C. Prasad to take back a list, breaching section 123(4) of the Constitution. And Kamala Prasad Biswas and the UNC went into the Parliament, the Electoral College, to ask for a tribunal. And the Speaker of the House, the blue-hair lady, Rowley's friend, and knew her husband, who's on 7 boards of Rowley, including Paria, where divers were left to die inexplicably for 39 hours, whose Inez Gate neighbor with Rowley. She said no debate. Also, independent senators were allowed to just vote, even though one of them was the sister of Bliss C. Prasad. All of you who know that was wrong, that was inappropriate, that is corrupt, that is a conflict of interest. All of you who knew, you stayed silent. And you kept staying silent as Rowley and Smallpin went to Houston and negotiated gas price, ignored the chemical engineers and those who were duly paid by taxpayers to protect the nation's resources. The most important, the gas. Jerry Brooks had to resign in disgust after Rowley usurped the authority of NGC and put Smallpin and himself face to face with upstreamers to negotiate a gas price on behalf of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And the upstreamers celebrated 69% increase in profits. And Trinidad and Tobago celebrated a decrease of 69% in revenues, with a loss at NGC for the first time. All of you knew it was because of that negotiation. All of you engineers, all of you in the oil and gas sector, and you stayed quiet. Why you stayed quiet? You have to answer that. But you stayed quiet, and that decimated our economy, and now we are bankrupt. And I could go on as you stayed quiet. You stayed quiet as the refinery was shut down for no reason, as board after board of Petrotrin was fired by Rowley, as $64 million of expert advice was ignored by Rowley, as Rowley ignored himself when he said he's not shutting down Petrotrin, as they lied and lied. All of you with brain who understand, you knew, but where was your voice? You were quiet. Why? I don't know. You have to answer. But now we are bankrupt. Now our nation is in peril. Now the very survival of Trinidad and Tobago is at hand because our intelligentsia, our intellect, our bright people are cowards because all you're afraid PNM. Because whatever it is that motivates you was more important than telling the truth. That's where we are, a country of cowards ruled by a tyrannical, oppressive, sick man, a red couch man, a poor father, a man who differentiates between his own children, a man who only gets furious with money, a man who all his friends and them is rich fellas who have questions to answer, whether they bareback and cussing, whether they come to shake his hand in the diplomatic center, wherever he meets people. Rowley's friends show who he is. Yet you are all intelligent and you're afraid of the vindictive, oppressive, tyrannical dictator. And you are to blame because the bright ones, the intelligent ones, to whom much is given, God bless you all with intellect, for you all to stay quiet and not lead the masses. You have left your people in the lurch. You have left your people to suffer, and now your country suffers because you were unable to use the gifts that God gave you to lead, to help, to assist, to inform the masses, to get rid of Rowley the dictator. And now Trinidad and Tobago, our beloved country, is bankrupt. Think about that and have a good night. You rest your head, and while you're resting your head, look at your family, look at your wife, look at your children, look at your grandchildren, and decide, was your silence worth it?